Welcome to the Old Mac Gang Podcast, or OMG, a podcast of vodcasts with a panel of longtime Mac and Apple users who discuss practical tips, apps, and systems for age-seasoned users. I'm Marty, an Apple enthusiast and podcaster. I'm a 67-year-old age-seasoned user who's gathered a great group of friends to talk about Apple and how seasoned citizens can use it. Today's topic is simple device maintenance and system file cleaning. And I think we kind of focus, at least I focus on the Mac on this one. We can do a whole separate show on phones or iPads if you want to, and how to keep things running smoothly. We've got a panel with us today, and let's go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Chris. I'm 78 years old. I've been retired for 8 years now and living in Tucson, Arizona, where I met Bob on jury duty, but that's a whole nother topic. And been around the Mac since 1984 with the first 128K Mac. Spent a bunch of time with Apple user groups and thoroughly enjoyed it in the Dallas area and Austin, and worked for Apple for a while and did some university IT in the West Coast. I'm now currently running, my latest acquisition is a Series 11 watch, which I'm enjoying immensely. And I've got an M1 Mac Mini, iPhone 16 Pro Max, 9th generation iPad, and gosh, lots of Apple services. Over to you, Bob.
Howdy from Tucson, partner. I would like to state here for the record that when Chris and I met on jury duty, we were both jurors or prospective jurors. Neither one of us was the defendant or part of any legal team. I'm still in my 70s here in Tucson and an officer of the Tucson Macintosh user group.
Hi, I'm Peter. I'm still 72 years old. I'm an age-seasoned Apple enthusiast from Bay Village, Ohio. I like to learn about all things Apple, and I enjoy sharing what I've learned with others, with this old Mac gang, and with our viewers and listeners.
So typically we cover some of the news, and today was kind of a big day with Apple product releases. And I lost track. I mean, I was at the hospital with a family member doing preoperative sort of stuff, and at the same time trying to purchase things on my cell phone. But I lost track about in terms of what was released. There was a MacBook Pro M5. There was an iPad Pro M5. Am I correct with that? Yeah. And then there was a Vision Pro with an M5 chip in it. So these were all sort of M5 upgrades. And was there anything else I missed?
You got the
Headband on
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
the headband on the Vision Pro seemed like made it look nicer and more comfortable.
And Chris, anything else?
I have to confess, I missed the whole thing today. I was working on other stuff all day.
Well,
so I'm just looking at Mac rumors right now.
It wasn't really like a video release. It just started going out as press releases from the Apple newsroom, and there were a couple of things. I do the show Vision Profiles on Monday nights, and Dave Ginsburg texted me and said, "I just bought the headgear, the new strap for the Vision Pro," and he was able to go in and purchase that separately. And my text back to him was, "I bought one of those too, but it had a Vision Pro attached to it." So yeah, I went in for the M5, and we'll see how that goes, and maybe leave the Vision Pro that I have to my miserable son to play with after I get the new one in. And another product you wouldn't know unless you were really into VR headsets, and particularly Apple Vision. Logitech created what they call a Muse pen, which is a rather thick Apple Pencil, but it's connected to the Vision Pro. So now you can start drawing out into spatial areas using this Muse pen and create whatever art installments you want to in the middle of your room. The pencil can't do that because the pencil is always connected to a surface. Yeah, Peter.
I'm hoping for a Harold and the Purple Crayon app for the Vision Pro.
Oh, really? Yeah. I got one of those too. So I wasn't interested in an iPad because I've got an M4 iPad and I don't use my iPad enough to justify bumping up. And yeah, so that skipped me by. They were talking about a HomePod, and there's been some discussion about a HomePod with a small iPad screen on it, like a 7-inch screen, but that didn't come to fruition. They didn't do anything with Apple TV, except just call it Apple TV now instead of 4K. So I don't know. It was an interesting release date, and it might not be done. Who knows? They might do a couple of things. I remember one year they did a release like on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of some products. So anyways, let's move away from that. My credit card is crying enough. Yeah, Chris.
Looks like we've got a Steve Jobs commemorative $1 coin coming in 2026. And the mock-up on Mac Rumors, or the picture on Mac Rumors, makes it look like he's sitting on a meditation cushion.
Huh, that's interesting. Well, we'll see if that ever comes to fruition. They'll mint 1 million of them, and they'll be face value. They'll say they're $1, but they'll be worth a dime maybe. Somebody's going to make a profit
item
off of it. Yeah, collector's
The Treasury makes out on those collector's items.
Yeah. Well, so that's maybe one other product we can look forward to. Apparently, the MacBook Pro M5 Pro chip is going to happen sometime in the spring. So that was part of the announcement too. They're doing the M5 line and then the M5 Pro line sometime in the spring to go into the MacBook Pro to give you more options. Right now, you can still buy a M4 in a couple of configurations for the MacBook Pro, and then the M5 chip on top of that. So, anyway,
Marty,
let's get
any kind of spec comparison with the Vision 2? Or do we need to wait for Vision profiles?
I ran some of that stuff today. I'll put it out as a pro note tomorrow because I wanted to do a strict comparison between the two. And I also want to wait for a little more news to, for someone to cut it open and really have some discussion on it. 10% improvement in terms of pixels. So you have your area is going to be clearer, 10% more of your area is clearer. And there are some other functions with the chip in terms of the speed that it can refresh will allow for sort of less fuzzy or less jiggly sort of experiences in the environment. But I was disappointed they didn't put an R2 chip in it. They stayed with the R1 that they had because that would have helped in terms of the device. But they say this is enough for people who are new coming in. It's got enough of a kick in it, and of course to be able to do AI and AI rendering quicker. So we'll see. I'll find out next Wednesday. But I will talk about the comparisons probably on Vision Pro Notes Friday morning is when I'll cut that. So tonight, again, we're talking about simple device maintenance around files. And I've always enjoyed Macs because they just seem to really hum, particularly with these new M chips in them. But I've also been really good about maintenance. And I hear other folks who are having trouble, or they can't get something to run, or these things these things get hung up, or they get the spinning beach ball of death. And I'm constantly, well, not constantly, but regularly cleaning my caches, doing all of that stuff. I just try to run those things, and I don't run into the problems on my systems that other people tell me they're having. So I think there's something to it. And it's more than just I want to clean junk off my disk because I want more room. But it allows it to, I think it's good to just good cleaning habits. Including last night we were talking about just doing an occasional nuke and pave, which means just take everything off your system, reboot it like it's factory, and then add the stuff back in to clear some of the garbage out of it. Some basic maintenance habits I'll talk about here. Restart your device at least once a week. It glitches clear up often with that. Keep your macOS and iOS updated. You can check that in System General Software Update. Uninstall unused apps. And there are services, some of them we'll talk about tonight, that will tell you these apps you're just not using. Why don't you just get rid of them or take them off? And use About This Mac storage to manage and find large or redundant files. That's one way of doing it. There are a couple of programs that we'll talk again tonight. Empty trash and download folders regularly. And keep your desktop as clean as possible. And like I just came back from a conference trip. My desktop got messy by the end of the weekend. And so today was one of the days I went through to kind of shorten everything up and get it back in folders or get it off my desktop. So you can find in search files that are larger than 500 megabytes. I know I have this on my system. My brother passed away, and they sent me all the pictures to create the video that was part of his remembrance service that we had. And that was something I didn't want to lose. So I know it's located not only in the cloud, but on my computer in a couple of places. And it's a huge file. So that always comes up, but I always leave it on. So those kinds of things you want to look for large files that you're not using anymore. So we've got some resources that we have, including from Apple support, how to free up storage space on your Mac, and then also, this is from MacPaw, how to free up disk space on the Mac with a guide on all sorts of ways of doing that. So that's a good link. Clean My Mac is a piece of software that I use, and I think many people use as a way. It's paid software, but it's a way to be able to analyze what's going on your system, and look for threats, look at performance issues, look at applications that need updates, and look for duplicate downloads that could be removed. So it's kind of a nice overall cleaning system. There is also Onyx, and Onyx is one of those softwares. It's free, is that right, Chris? Because Chris, you just started playing with it today.
I did. It is free. It looks great.
Yeah, I started playing with it when I first got a Mac, and I was scared because I didn't know what all the settings meant with it, right, and if I was going to clean something off that I shouldn't. And so I was rather conservative with what I chose with that because I didn't know what to switch on and what to switch off with it. But Onyx is a nice piece of software, and you can go to the link that we have and download it and try it out for yourself. And then there is Time Machine, and the idea of using Time Machine to back up your Mac is kind of a safety or safe issue piece. And then finally, that's what we've got. We've got all of that. The first one, free up your Mac storage, that is from the support, has a YouTube video that goes with it that's really good in terms of explaining the stuff and showing that out. So we have some good resources. And so I've got some questions for the panel, and I think we start with Peter on this one. What's your personal routine for file management in terms of dealing with documents, photos, downloads, etc.?
Well, I use automation for the most part. I don't do anything manually or by operating a program. I set up a program. Well, it is a program. It's called Hazel, and it is focused on folders. And I set up a series of rules for different folders that I might place files, whether it's my downloads folder or other folders that I've created. And it has a number of rules, and in some cases it deletes older files. And more often than that, most of the time, it just gets those files off my laptop, my main machine, and moves old files into parallel directories on my network attached storage, which I can get at, but not as quickly as something on my laptop. I generally only reboot my computer when things have a sense of not running smoothly, which is rarely. And I think that the routine maintenance scripts that macOS runs, whether you reboot or not, do a decent job on their own, or at least they do in my case. If I feel the need for something more than that, I've been using an Onyx competitor. It's not free. It's called Cocktail, to trigger more extensive digital hygiene routines. On occasions, I suddenly feel the urge to manually search for big files that may have accumulated somewhere. And I have a favorite old utility called Daisy Disk that I got used to long before macOS built in similar functionality for free. I don't advise people to buy Daisy Disk. I just say, go into the system settings, and it'll classify files a lot of different ways. Maybe not quite as nice as Daisy Disk, but you can certainly locate the big files easily and then decide, is it a saver or is it something you might want to stash somewhere else? And I do occasionally stash extra copies of things on particular hard drives.
Yeah, well, you never tell me not to buy something because a lot of those, well, Cocktail, I think I've tried. I might even have it. Onyx, I know I've tried. And Hazel, I have a subscription, or had a subscription to. Never could figure out how to use it, and sounds like, Peter, you've kind of turned it into a fine art of being able to do it. But the software that I really use is Clean My Mac. And about rebooting, I reboot my machine probably 5 out of the 7 nights of the week. Well, I should say mornings. Because I rarely leave it running overnight unless I'm rendering some video or uploading a podcast where I want to go to bed because I'm tired and I'm not going to wait up for it to happen. So there'll be probably 3 times a week that I wake up in the morning, my machine's still there running, and it's done whatever I've asked it to do. So I use Clean My Mac pretty regularly, and you seem like you have a nice setup. It's all automated and it does that. My changes with Clean My Mac and my maintenance stuff happens because I'm particularly with podcasting. I have back files of recent podcasts that I've done. So my folder consists of subfolders with all of the different podcast names that I have and the latest version or the latest one that I've done. So when we're doing 46 tonight, so 45 is still in that folder. I have a folder that is in that folder that is called Done, and I will move the completed podcasts into that folder, and then start the number for the next podcast. To make a longer story shorter, the problem is that file builds up, and it's also mirrored on my laptops. So what happens is I'll get a warning from my laptop, or when I turn on my laptop, then I'm almost out of disks disk space. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I realize it's because that podcast and that video editing folder that I have just keeps expanding. So then I go back to my main system and I move those things off onto external drives, sometimes to the cloud, but those transitions take a real long time to do off my system or off of that. So I just move them on to two terabyte drives. I buy one every 6 months, and that manages all of my podcast stuff. So I'm triggered by my laptops not filling up and not being able to be used. So for that reason, then I'll do clean my Mac. Then I'll do move the files off, and I'll get the total storage down, so it's not triggering on my laptops. Chris?
Yeah, well, my first impression when I was thinking about this is that I'm probably not the best guy to ask because I predate most of these apps, and I was the guy that got called in support when these apps would break something or the OS would need to be reinstalled, which was rare, but it happened early on. But, I've been retired for 8 years. What can I say? The operating systems have really matured. You start digging around in the OS now, and it's just astonishing all the stuff that's there. And these apps and utilities have matured as well. So my M1 was running a little slow and sluggish, and I thought, okay, I'll take the bait. I'll download the free one, Onyx, and try it out. I was fairly pleased that the default settings, I don't think, and I should have paid more attention to this, but I don't think included anything that I would have turned off that is like too severe, because you want to go light on these things if you're not sure, right? And you guessed it, my M1 recovered 50 gigabytes of free space, even after the trash had been emptied ahead of time. And yes, now it's running faster and smoother. Another advantage of an app like Onyx is it knows how to run certain routines. Like, for instance, I've got 5 email accounts, 25 years of email, and, Mac Mail is bloated to say the least. And so once in a while, I redo the email index. If you've never heard of it, don't worry about it. But you have to do this carefully and do it in the right way, or else you might not have any email. And but Onyx purports to be able to do that properly. So I will probably give that a try. I'm going to give it overnight because it'll take that long for those indexes to rebuild. But so that's another advantage to these guys. And then in terms of, like we were saying, or will say that this, in terms of overnight, you got to have backups, right? And that's really important if you're going to be running any of these apps, just in case they go haywire. And, I run Time Machine and Backblaze, and I have those set up to run in the evening. There's a little app called, I think, Time Machine Editor. Maybe Bob can check me on that. That will restrict the hours that Time Machine can run so that it doesn't go off using computer cycles when you don't want it to. And let's see, I think that's it. But yeah, I was relatively pleased with Onyx.
I use reminders for a lot of this stuff. I have arbitrarily picked the 15th of the month as my date to run Clean My Mac X, which I have as part of SetApp, and to do a malware bytes scan. I use the free version. And so tomorrow I'll be doing that on both my Macs. I have a rather convoluted but also comprehensive backup system that gives me about 8 copies of each of my files, one of which is offsite. I have been asked by new age seasoned users at Apple group meetings in the past, why do I need a backup? I don't have anything important on my computer. To which my standard reply is, okay, don't do a backup. You can always take another photo of your granddaughter's 7th birthday party the next time she has a 7th birthday. nothing gives one that good old backup religion like data loss.
Well, I have to have a 7-year-old granddaughter before I can have a picture that I can lose. But that's okay. I am, just backup and doing backup. I think we did a show on backup. And the redundancy part is really important. So Bob's eight copies of everything, I think, is might seem excessive, but it works for Bob, and that's part of the security that people have. So let's talk about the next question here. Do you rely on built-in tools like managed storage, or do you use third-party apps? And why do you choose to use third-party apps if you do? Or why do you use the built-in storage?
I use third party for the most part, and it's really a historical reason. It's because I started using them before the built-in tools became as robust as they are now, or maybe because they offered some oddball function. And the ones that come to mind right away are deleting a locked file, which some oddball software that I use generates, or when I'm using a machine that's not mine, secure erase, where you erase something and overwrite it a whole bunch of times. I think the built-in apps are fine for 90% of users. Now, that being said, I have never completely understood managed storage, so I've never used it. I use, as I said before, Hazel and another program called ChronoSync to synchronize things between different machines when I'm using multiple machines, which I'm not right at the moment. But I never want to lose anything inadvertently. So when I don't understand something, like Marty, I don't use it. I try to show others built-in solutions. And the exception to that would be different things that create automations in lieu of Mac OS, and I'm saying specifically on Mac OS, shortcuts. I have found shortcuts on the Mac unreliable, quirky, and changeable. The shortcuts I've written, which have done things sometimes that other things have trouble doing, change or break with every new operating system release. And Chris can probably tell you, far worse than writing a program in the first place is going and taking an old program and trying to understand what the heck you did and trying to fix it. I mean, it's often better to just write it from scratch. That being said, Mac OS is based on a version of Unix. I think it's called Darwin. And I have shell scripts that I've continued to use, and they've worked unchanged since Mac OS Panther 10.3. So I rely on shell scripts and Apple scripts for automation, as well as some of those third-party apps.
Well, I feel a little guilty because apparently all the stuff that I can do with these third-party apps, most of it you can do with built-in stuff on your Mac. And every time somebody brings that up, it's like, oh, you are smarter than me. But I mentioned before, Onyx was probably the first thing I got. It was free. I don't know how I found out about it. But as Peter mentioned, I was cautious about trying to click too many things to clean up on my Mac. I mean, even if you're not using third-party apps, you can screw up your system just if you get into your library access and go, oh, I don't really need this in my library. Well, yeah, you do. So I was always concerned about that. And then one other more, I guess, transparent kind of third-party apps came along, like Clean My Mac. That's kind of, you set it up, you push the buttons that you want, and it will do a fine job of cleaning material off. Now, I've learned enough about my Mac that I know where to look to find out where there might be stuff hidden or stuff that I haven't paid attention to that I need to either get off my Mac or get on backup for that reason. But yeah, for me, I've kind of, and it's interesting because more and more people are owning up to the fact that, just using third-party apps, and they rattle off a few. So, Chris.
Yeah, my short answer is also going to be stay with the third-party apps. I've always been more of a manual guy, and I tend not to fix it if it ain't broke. So my suggestion is going to be sort of twofold here. In terms of our seasoned users, if you are an advanced or technical user, do your homework first and find out beforehand what the routines like managed storage are actually doing. And as a hint, you can use ChatGPT like I did or Perplexity, and you might be surprised to find out what all they're doing. For everybody else, I would say avoid these or let somebody technical do them for you or run the third-party apps as directed. The concept with managed storage of having a desktop and a documents folder in iCloud, and I got this from Bob's and my friend Kevin at the user group, thank you, Kevin, was that it was designed to sync to a second computer. So you could have like an office computer and a home computer, and they would both have reasonably identical desktops and document folders. Well, that's fine on a superficial level, but we all know there's a heck of a lot going on our machines besides those two folders. And as Kevin pointed out, when you try to run this with just one computer, it kind of wasn't designed for that. And so this is where sometimes, Apple marketing and Apple engineering kind of, run into each other a little bit. But otherwise, I would just stay with the third-party apps. And I would say bottom line, if 10% of our seasoned users are technical enough to do this stuff, I'd be surprised. And just because you're an old programmer doesn't mean you can't get a giant hairball in macOS. I've fixed a number of them for programmers. So third-party apps all the way, I'd say.
Bob.
I use mostly the built-in apps to manage storage, including the one that is between the chair and the keyboard. On occasion, I will archive client data for previous clients. A lot of that are photos. And I archive it over on my Synology to free up space on the internal hard drives and backup drives. I feel that if a previous client loses data and asks me to replace it, I will be happy to look for it on the Synology archive. But if it's not there, too bad. You're no longer a active client. One of the things I do use is the built-in ability to empty the trash of any item that has been in the trash for more than 1 week. Therefore, I am reducing the amount in the trash, but I'm also backing myself up for something I accidentally put in the trash, and tomorrow I decide I didn't want to. So that's my storage management thing.
Okay.
Marty?
Let's look at our third question and final question. If you had to recommend just one ongoing maintenance habit to seniors, what would it be?
Well, I'm with Bob, and I think Marty has said the same thing, multiple backups. Since I have been at least triply backed up, so I have at least 3, and in many cases photos and things like that, I might have a couple more. I have been immune to hardware failures. I've been immune to software failures. I've been immune to wetware failures, and wetware being human failures. And I've been pretty much worry-free since that time as well. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, see, I for me, backups is something different than maintenance. So, backups are protecting your storage, whereas maintenance is making your system operate better. So I am going to go with suggesting that if you can't figure out how to do it, find a more tech-savvy friend to help you do it, to set up some sort of regular third-party app that will run the kind of maintenance that you would want to do, and run it in a way that's not going to threaten your system. And again, I will go back to Clean My Mac because that is the easiest. In fact, got a phone call from my daughter who was trying to do something with her computer, and she said, "Dad, do we still have an account for Clean My Mac?" And I explained to her, how she could get it if she wanted to get it. So, and she's pretty good, but I don't think she thinks about the operating system of a Mac like any of us do. And it seems to be an easy add-on product to be able to do cleaning of your caches, checking for files. You can go through and look at what apps you have that you might want to remove that are no longer functional for you. And it's pretty transparent to figure out what you're doing when you're doing it. So that would be my recommendation for ongoing maintenance to seniors, is to get that app and use it every couple of weeks. Chris?
Yeah, I would probably say restart frequently, every couple of days. Check the free space on your internal or your system or boot drive. And again, like Peter says, set up and check your backups, make sure they're working, and run the maintenance app of choice. And, like I said, Onyx seemed to work fine for me. Clean My Mac's another one. But like Einstein said, keep it as simple as possible, but not any simpler. So in other words, don't overdo it either. And, finally, get help if you need it. It's your digital world. If you take care of it, it'll provide you with years, if not decades, of productive and rewarding usage. But it does take some maintenance, and it's a good idea. Bob?
I would say, to echo what others have said, backups and restarts. It's easy to have too few backups, but you can't have too many. I will probably personally be adding a weekly or semi-monthly restarts to my reminders application. And then back to Marty.
Well, that's what we've got. We've got some good information and a lot of the links to some suggestions and some apps and things like that will be in the show notes. So take a look at those. Want to thank you for listening or watching us at this point. We had a couple of people in the chat room, which was nice. We had Gary and also Lee. So it's nice to have them along for the show. You can join us live with the show on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. at youtube.com/@oldmacgang, and that will get you to our channel on YouTube, and you can look for the live stream that's going on. We get started sometimes a little after 9 o'clock, but we try to hit for 9 o'clock if I don't have to do too much setup. You can also listen to all of our past, you can look at all the past shows if you want, and listen to all of our shows on any of your podcatcher service. Email us at thepodtalk.network@gmail.com. There is plenty of information that we would like to hear from you. If you're interested in joining us in a show, or if you have something that you would like us to talk about with that, check out our website, thepodtalk.net. You can look at a variety of podcasts that we do as part of the Pod Talk Network, and join us on some of the other shows as we do them. Our next live episode will be Wednesday, October 22nd at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, YouTube at youtube.com/@oldmacgang. You can always catch the replays later on. Please share this with your friends, because word of mouth is the best way for us to get people who want to hear what we have to say and what we want to share, and also to get people involved in this community of the Old Mac Gang. Our music bed is by Philip Gross, Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. Thanks for these guys. It's great. I mean, it's like Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. I turn on my machine, and shortly after that, Chris is there, and Peter's there, and Bob's there. And Charlie's gone this week. But he'll be back to join us on the show. So thanks to the group, Chris, Bob, Peter, and thanks to you for being part of the Old Mac Gang.